Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambeau channel. Fox Business journalist Charles Gasparino has stated that the SEC v. Ripple decision from Judge Torres is idiotic and sloppy. So, I disagree with that. And here's what I'm going to do, because I'll tell you this, if you're in the XRP community, you're hanging out on Twitter, you've probably seen the fireworks already, right? So here's the deal. I am not interested in getting in the trenches. I'm going to say my perspective on what's been going on, the jousting back and forth between Charles Gasparino and, broadly speaking, the XRP community. I have no interest in getting in the trenches. I enjoy much more in engaging in intellectual jousting, the sharing and challenging of ideas. That's a lot more fun to me than mudslinging and this and that. So I'll just say this, I'm disappointed that things have come to this. But in regards to this idea that Judge Torres' ruling is idiotic and sloppy, in line with just wanting to stick to intellectual jousting, I shared actually on social media why I disagree, and I want to share that with you on my channel here, why Charles Gasparino, in my estimation, is absolutely incorrect, and I think he has a misunderstanding of what was stated in there, even though he's now read the thing 3 times. And everyone's entitled to their opinion, but I wanted to share what I had to say, and to this point, he hasn't written back. But before going further, I do want to be clear. I do not have a legal or financial background of any kind. I'm not offering legal or financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. All right, so couple things here. Without getting into the trenches, that is not what I'm doing here. I'm just sharing what I'm observing here. I think that it is the case that almost 100% of the time, if Charles Gasparino is punching against you, right, in the way that he's writing or writing something insulting towards you, it's because you did something first. That has just been my observation. It doesn't mean that there haven't been any exceptions to that. But there are some people that actually got offended by his idea, which I talked about on the channel. It might have been October of last year. He added a perspective that I just thought was outright wrong, and I talked about it on my channel. There are some people that got into the name-calling zone, and he got back. And then it ended up snowballing, and now with the decision here, it's snowballed even further. Now, that being said, Charles Gasparino, he has said some stuff that is clearly to just be provocative against the XRP community. I think that's fair to say. Let me give you an example right here. Because he's calling, the XRP community broadly cultists. Look at what's on the screen here. It's a tweet from the other day from Charles Gasparino. Funny how investment cults work. When I wrote what XRP crowd loved, they called me a hero. When I reported a few things they hate, I'm public enemy number 1. Little insight. I call them as I see them. No amount of trolling will change the way I do my job. In fact, I love the battle. And that is true. The more pushback that he gets, the more that he just starts tweeting things that are obviously going to make people within our community mad. So he is intentionally being provocative. So on an individual level, he's probably not going to be rude to you unless you're rude to him first. I have seen an exception at 1 or 2, but it's almost always the other way around. I'm just being intellectually honest. This is what I see. But still, he is clearly trying to get a rise out of the XRP community. And I don't like any of this. I don't like any of this. So that's why, for me, I'm just going to keep sticking to what I'm doing. And he's allowed to have a perspective from me. So the way that I approach it is, it's the same approach that I have with, for instance, former SEC attorney Mark Fagel. I've been highlighting a bunch of stuff from him on my channel. I agree with him on almost nothing as it pertains to the SEC v. Ripple case. I agree with some things, but I think he's sharing belief, things that he actually believes. That's what I suspect is the case anyway, based on how he conducts himself and based on the fact that he's not literally 100% pro SEC, so that's something. And so that's kind of how I'm approaching this. Charles Gasparino or anybody, you're allowed to have your opinions that are different than mine, and that's not going to make me mad. If I were to get mad or dislike a person because they have an opinion that's different than mine, I'd start to feel like a Neanderthal. I'd be like, maybe I should come back and think, maybe I could be a little bit more intellectual and articulate why I disagree. Maybe I could do that instead. Maybe that's a better way to live life. Instead, we've got all this mudslinging. So I'm going to stay out of the trenches. I'm just sharing with you what I've observed. Nobody's perfect in all of this. But it's really unfortunate. There's also this question. Somebody asked, Charles Gasparino, do you not like XRP? Seems like you are far more negative about XRP than other unbiased journalists. And Charles Gasparino responded, good question, he says. Good question. I have no opinion of XRP, though I have no problem jousting with the cultists. I think the SEC's regulation by enforcement is horrible for the markets. I also think this ruling is idiotic. The crypto biz needs bright red lines of what to do and what not to do. Okay, so he thinks things are crystal clear, or not crystal clear, in particular as it pertains to the status of XRP. He is mistaken on that. So here's the tweet that he put out. Just read Judge Torres's Ripple for a second time, so he means the Ripple opinion, SECV Ripple opinion. The twisted logic gave crypto to worst of all worlds. To worst of all worlds, that's what he wrote. To delineate between an exchange sale and an institutional sale turns logic and securities law on its head. The best outcome for crypto would be a ruling that XRP is not a security. She didn't do that. She said, isn't in of itself a security. That creates a huge gray area in an industry that needs regulatory clarity. She must be an Obama appointee. Heritage, which chose most of Trump judges, would have seen her blind spots a mile away. So again, he's saying XRP was not declared to not be a security. That's what she should have done. Now there's this gray area. He also wrote this. If there is one thing I learned from Judge Torres' sloppy decision on Ripple, is just how connected XRP and Ripple really are. For years, the company tried to tell me otherwise. Her decision, while idiotic, did produce this gem. Quote, Ripple explains that its business model is predicated on a belief that demand for XRP will increase if the Ripple protocol becomes widely adopted. And, quote, if the Ripple protocol becomes the backbone of global value transfer, Ripple expects the demand for XRP will be considerable, end quote. And so he seems to think that this is some sort of problem. Now, as far as Ripple saying, are distancing themselves from XRP, I've never seen that. I've been following XRP and what's been happening with Ripple almost 6 damn years now. They've been very clear that XRP is at the core of their business model. And that's not wrong. That's not bad. Judge Torres is observing that to be the case, but think back to Howey. If you think back to the W.J. Howey Code, what was at the core of their business model? Oranges and orange groves, right? Oranges and orange groves. And they were expecting the adoption of their product would increase and it would become more desirable. That was the point, to become a successful, viable business. Well, same with Ripple. So with Ripple, the underlying asset is XRP. With W.J. Howey Co., that's the name of the company, the underlying asset was an orange. That is no different. And so observing that Howey wanted to, increase demand, so on and so forth, and they thought demand would increase, that's no different than Ripple hoping and expecting the demand for XRP to be considerable and increase in the future. There's no difference whatsoever. So I respectfully disagree with Charles Gasparino on that. And then there's this idea of XRP not having clarity. And so I actually took some time to write to him, and it's what's on your screen right here. And so I texted him, I tweeted to him, I respectfully disagree and have articulated my position below. I used a screen grab to defeat the Twitter character limitation. Judge Torres' ruling makes it crystal clear that XRP itself is not a security. No gray area, no blind spot. And here's what I wrote. And this is to point, again, the whole point of what's on the screen is to push back against Charles's incorrect idea that XRP does not have clarity. Because again, he said that there was a blind spot. He said there's a gray area. He is mistaken on that. And so I'm just challenging his idea, not him as a person. This is how I handle stuff on my channel. If you've been following me for some time, you know that I go out of my way to make sure that if that's the intent, that I make sure that that's known. Not because I care about people's feels. It's because I more so enjoy having intellectual discourse. And by going out of my way to make that extra comment, I think that it will prevent people from feeling that there's some sort of affront against them, and then we can actually engage in conversation. I don't care about the feels of the person. If anybody, I'm not talking about Charles, but if anybody's going to be an adult child and get offended and not like me because I have an opinion that's different than theirs and I push back against their ideas, they're just children, and I don't care. But the reason I go out of my way to say, hey, I'm not trying to offend you, but I do think you're wrong, is so that we can have the conversation. That's why I do this. That's it, because that's more fun to me than, getting in the trenches and throwing mud at one another. This is way more enjoyable. And so I wrote the following. Imagine a judge rules in a lawsuit that a particular number is the number 5. that means the number in question is not 3. A detractor could say the judge didn't find that the number isn't 3. The judge only found that the number is 5. But think about that. If the judge found that the number is 5, that means the judge found that it isn't any other number. Not 3, not 4, not 6, not 7. She didn't need to literally say that that number is not 3 for us to know that. All she needed to say was the number is 5. And by logical extension, we know that means the number 5 cannot also be the number 3. Same concept when Judge Torres talked about the nature of XRP itself. Judge Torres said verbatim, quote, XRP as a digital token is not in and of itself a contract, transaction, or scheme that embodies the Howey requirements of an investment contract, end quote. We know that if Howey requirements are not satisfied, then the thing being discussed is not a security. The idea that XRP doesn't satisfy Howey requirements is equivalent in meaning to the idea that XRP is not itself a security. Judge Torres doesn't need to also literally say XRP is not a security for us to know this. Just like if a judge rules that a particular number is the number 5, we know that number cannot possibly be 3. Now imagine that people in an opposing party in such a lawsuit, prior to the judge's ruling, were asserting the number in question was, in fact, 3. After the judge's ruling that the number is 5, you'd have a whole lot of people, understandably, arguing that the judge found the number in question was not 3. To take issue with such wording is to miss the point. The point is, if you follow the natural extension of logic here, 5 cannot also be 3, and XRP itself cannot possibly be a security. This means Judge Torres did provide a clear ruling on the matter. Also, if Judge Torres had instead said that XRP itself does embody the Howey factors, that would be equivalent in meaning to her outright saying XRP is a security, even if those weren't the words she used to communicate that idea. There you go. I pretty much nailed it, right? I think I freaking nailed that. So nothing against Charles. I like to share ideas. I love debate. I think debate is a ton of fun. I've always thought that debate is highly enjoyable. Not everybody's wired like that. I am. I love debate. I don't like arguments and rudeness and mudslinging and getting into the trenches, which is why this is all just so regrettable to me. And no party's been perfect. Like I cited, I was just sharing my observations on this. Not to provocate any further. I'm just making an observation. That is what it is. You take a vote with the vote. Everybody's entitled to their own opinions here. I'm just disappointed with all this. But is what it is. I'm staying out of the trenches. That's that. But, the reason that I share ideas like this, even if I think I can't persuade the person I'm talking to, that's not even always the goal. In fact, it's almost always not the goal when I'm debating somebody on the internet. You know what I'm saying? It's for anybody else that might be listening and observing the debate between me and somebody else to get to hear both sides and then make their own determination. So even if I'm debating somebody who actually isn't necessarily acting in good faith, which does happen, if I proceed with that, it's not to change that person's mind. It's for the benefit of anybody else who might be watching who just wants to get various perspectives. That's it. That's all I'm doing here. Charles doesn't have to respond to me for this to have been worth my time. Thousands of people saw this on Twitter. Undoubtedly, thousands of people are going to see this video. So it's worth it. And you guys get to make your own decision. Was Charles's position more persuasive, or was mine? It's fine. And if Charles ever wants to respond, of course. And then I'd read that, and then I'd have a thoughtful response. Or maybe he persuades me. But in the case of this, it's not likely. I've already done a more than thorough analysis of the judge's ruling and gotten perspective from tons of attorneys. So I think that, respectfully here, I think that Charles Gasparino just has a misreading. Because he said ultimately, I think he's read it 3 times now, read the opinion. I think he's just missing it. he should probably speak with some additional attorneys to get a better feel for exactly what some of the specifics mean. And I don't mean that to be rude. I really think he's just missing some really key points here. And that's why I was trying to point out the logical fallacy of what he was stating here. So, it is what it is. Not getting in the trenches. I'm not doing it. I'll wrap up here. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.